Left over on 286. Or the Gimel, 286 Gimel. Okay, Gimel 286 in the Mechaber. Ner shel cheres, shehidlik bo laila achas. Now, what is an earthenware candle? We're talking about pottery which hasn't been glazed. Like, for instance, on Shabbos we speak about muktzah machmas mius. Something's muktzah because it's something which is disgusting, detestable. An earthenware vessel, if it's not glazed, once it's used, whatever it was used for, it absorbs into the material, and you touch it, your hands become dirty, and also it becomes putrid. What do you glaze anything? The whole concept of glazing was really to prevent disease. That even though it's porous to a degree, even with the glaze, because it's a very thin glaze, but factually, the majority of what you put on there does not absorb into. You get a very slight amount, right? La halacha, a person takes a china plate, meat plate, mistakenly you use it for dairy. What's the halacha? You can't kosher it, right? Can't be koshered because it's considered kli cheres. Earthenware, once it absorbs, you can't extract what's absorbed into it. But it's glazed, right? The answer is because since the glaze is only a film, we say something gets through. There is a certain, something is absorbed through that glass. No, not because of the glaze. Brand new. It's newly, never used once, and then you use it for whatever it is. It's not kosher. It's possible cholav. Let's say it's used within 24 hours. It's possible cholav. Cannot. Because the glaze is so thin, therefore it absorbs through the glass. Even if you're of the opinion that glass doesn't absorb, right? Nevertheless, because it's so thin. But if you don't have that glaze, what happens? It fully absorbs. I mean, the pottery, the clay fully absorbs whatever you put on it. So what is it? If you have an oil candle, your hands get greasy, right? You can't clean it. It's greasy. So it becomes ner yoshon. A ner chodosh is muktzah machmas iser. Muktzah machmas iser, its designation is to do something that you're not permitted to do on Shabbos. A klishim lachtul iser, for its location and for its own usage, you could use it. For a hammer. You want to take a hammer, you want to crack nuts with a hammer. Although the hammer is always used for building, you're permitted. A camera's on a certain location, you want to move it because you need its location, you're permitted to move it. That's the law. What about if something's muktzah machmas mius? You have an earthen wick, a candle made of clay, has never been used yet. What's its designation? It's like a pot. A pot is muktzah machmas iser. What is a pot? What is its value? Cooking. Right? You're not permitted to cook on Shabbos. So if the pot has food in it, you could move the pot, because that's for permitted usage. Right? You want to store food in the pot. You're using it for permitted usage. You could use the pot. But let's say a person just wants to touch pots or rearrange his pots, or he wants to, he left his pot out on his deck and he wants to bring it in. He's not permitted. Right? Because there you don't need its location, and you don't need it for its own usage. But what about if you have a candle that was used already? And now it's oily, and if you touch it, your hands become dirty, become oily. You're not permitted to move. That's called muktzah machmas mius. It's mius. It's something which is detestable. You don't want to touch it. So he's saying, ner shel cheres shehidlik bo laila achas. You used it once. Nasa yoshim v'likim bo laila cheres. It's not really... For bar mitzvah, you have to use something which is more respectful, right? You're doing a mitzvah, like we speak at Hidur mitzvah, but here this is something which would be considered disrespect. You shouldn't use that candle for another night. Every night you should take a new earthenware candle, clay candle. What happens if that's the only candle you have? What you do, you should put it into the kiln. And by putting it into that, you actually extract whatever's absorbed in the clay. What about it's made of metal? It's made of metal. Ein tzorah chodosh. This is literally a Mishnah on Shabbos. We speak of ner shel barzel. If it's made of mateches, it's made of metal. It's made of clay. V'shel zchuchis. What about if it's made of glass? Zchuchis is glass. O shel cheres mechuse dinik mateches. If it's made of glass, or sometimes you have pottery, which is covered with metal. I mean, it has like, it's like you have at one time. Today you don't see this much, but years ago, people didn't have that much money. You buy a set of candlesticks. They were loaded. It was like a film of sterling silver. It was only a film, but it was loaded with whatever was inside. It was weighted. Same thing. So So if you have earthenware and it's covered with glass, it's glazed, or with metal, the halacha is it's permitted because it could be cleaned. You could wash it. Doesn't absorb into the material itself because that has a coating.
And listen, what are we talking about? We're talking about the candle.
When you do a mitzvah, it has to be done minimally on a respectful level. Something which represents something which is unclean, and you actually it's repulsive to you. You don't use such a thing for a mitzvah because it's unclean. An earthenware candle which is not glazed, it's a piece of pottery. Once you put the oil in there, it becomes oily. It becomes something normally you throw away. Now you're going to use that for a mitzvah. It's not appropriate. You shouldn't use it. You shouldn't use it. It's been used already. Let's say use it on the first night. Now you want to use that same earthenware candle on the second night. The candle means the receptacle. We're talking about the receptacle that you put the oil in. But the receptacle itself is something which is greasy, and it's something you normally would discard. You don't use it for a mitzvah. But if it's made of glass, or it's coated, the earthenware it's glazed, or it's covered with metal, it's not a problem. The Mishna Berura speaks about this. The Shabbos has to do with kashrus also. Many years ago, they covered many of the pots, made of lead. People had lead poisoning. They had things covered with, it had a lead coating on it, rather than being another type of metal like iron. Okay? Gimel. Cheres kosu b'svorim shetov kol echad sheyatzruich lasos lo menorah yofel lefi kochel. He says it's cited in Svarim that when it comes to the menorah, you should try to make it as nice as possible. This is a kilevan veu. It's not only the receptacle should be made out of a material which is a quality material to enhance the mitzvah, but even the fuel, as we discussed earlier, right? The type of wax, the candle, or the wick, or whatever it may be. Acheres, shumos ubizu mitzvah, right? You're disgracing the mitzvah, using something which repulses you, and you normally throw out, use it for a mitzvah. It's not acceptable. Mechuse, hainum mitzupa ba'avor. It's coated with lead. It's fine. Every night we add oil, right? You have to have minimally a half an hour's worth of oil. You have to change the wick every night, or you could use the wick from the previous night. So he says that you don't have to be concerned because the wick, once it lights, it's the same wick. As long as it burns, it burns. What? If it's singed, but if it's burnt down to a certain degree, you can't use it. So that's what he says. There's no reason to change the wicks as long as the wick is usable. Using a used wick is not considered bizoyin mitzvah, because the whole idea is when you're performing the mitzvah, it's very interesting. We hold la halacha. You see, it's real. We hold hadlokos a mitzvah. The kindling is the mitzvah. If you say it's the burning is the mitzvah, see, you understand. Even though the wick has been used, what is the mitzvah? When it burns. When it burns, you can't differentiate when it's old wick, when it's a new wick. But if we rule halacha hadlokos a mitzvah, it's the kindling is the mitzvah. So when you actually light it, what kind of wick are you lighting? You're lighting a wick, not a new wick. You're lighting a used wick. It was used already. So maybe it's considered inappropriate, right? I mean, that's the consideration. Why? That's what a mechaber has to go out of his way to say that even though the wick was used, as long as the wick would ignite, it's acceptable. I understand that. Still, You start with, could you imagine you're a guest in my house? You know, I set up your own menorah, and I give you my wicks that I used yesterday. So, look the way he treats me. He uses the new wicks, I use the old wicks. It's more than singed. There's a mitzvah, you know, the Gemara says that the mitzvah of Hadlokas Neris is the woman's mitzvah. But the husband, there's a school of Shalom Bayis that the husband should singe the wicks pre-lit or set the candles in place. See, today you don't have to singe the wicks. Many of them it's a wax wick. It's a wax wick, so the moment you put it to it, it lights immediately. But if you had a cotton wick, you know, sometimes, you know, it takes a little bit longer to light the wick. So then there's a mitzvah to singe the wick, and the husband puts out the wick, so when the wife lights the candles, they ignite immediately. Right? That's a school of Shalom Bayis. Okay? Somebody, you know, people, they're into all these schoolers. You know? There's a story, schoolers, yeah. So, you know, like people say, you know, it's important to fold your towels immediately after Shabbos, because it's the Shabbos stuff, because it's a school of Shalom Bayis. You know, maybe you want a school of Shalom Bayis, speak to your wife more respectfully. You know, treat her with greater sensitivity. So there's a story of Gifter. There was a certain Kola person, you know, his wife asked him to take out the garbage. He felt, you know, he's sitting and studying. It's inappropriate, you know, she should be the one to take it out. He should be the one. And he went to discuss with Rav Gifter. So Rav Gifter says, I hear what you're saying. So it was Friday afternoon. Somebody rings his doorbell. Who is it? Rav Gifter. I'm here to take out your garbage. Could you please give it to me? So he got the message across very, very clearly. Okay. People that get carried away with themselves. Okay. Ache Tichler. So he says, the Mishna Berura explains, as we're discussing now, a wick that was used is a better wick. Shein ben bizoyin mitzvah, the adrab, just to the contrary, him nochen lahadlik yoser. They ignite more easily. Yos kishen would lock and kvar. If they were already used before, it was burnt before, it was kindled. That wick is a better wick. So it's not considered bizoyin. It's not considered disgraceful to use a wick, an old wick. But I can tell you, let's say you have candles, which is not simple. You have a candle that burnt down halfway. You could put a new candle in, or use the old candle. And the old candle is all melted down, and it looks like a disaster. I mean, it's not mos, right? But factually, it's a lot more appropriate to use a new candle rather than using an old candle. Look, a person does. It's not bizoyin. It's not similar to the earthenware candle with the receptacle, where it's greasy and it's something you normally would throw out. You discard it. Mutar l'hadlik b'nei l'ner. Now, this discussion. You have a match. You want to light your match. To light the candles. Let's say you have a shamas. You light one candle with the shamas, then the candle goes out. The shamas goes out. So what do? Are you permitted to light the shamas from one of the burning candles to light the subsequent candles? The halacha is, the Gemara says, you're not permitted to do this. Because what is the status of the shamas? It's ordinary. It's an ordinary candle. It's not a mitzvah candle. So to light from the shamas from the candle that's burning, you're not permitted. Mishna Berura speaks about a case, Yom Tiv, people smoke. Those people who smoke, it's not so simple. You're permitted to smoke. But according to those that you're permitted to smoke, to light your cigarette or your cigar from the Yom Tiv candles. Right? Are you permitted? He says it's a bizarre mitzvah. I mean, the candle's burning for Yom Tiv. They're designated for a mitzvah. So to light your cigarette off that candle, it's a disgrace. So, what? No, but it's a dvar mitzvah. It's an object of mitzvah. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. It says you're not permitted. What about using a yard site? You know, people on Yisker, they light the Yisker light. Has the Yom Tiv, the light from there. He says it's okay. Because Yisker is only a memorial candle. It's not a mitzvah. Like Yom Tiv, there's an obligation. You must light Yom Tiv candles. You see a bracha on that. So it's inappropriate. It's not respectful. be continued. How was your trip yesterday? Good experience. Okay. Shabbos you where? Boston. With Judy. Oh, you went to visit. Very nice. Visiting day.
If you have an electronic camera on your countertop where you serve the food for Shabbat, you're allowed to pick it up normally and put it away?
You mean it's not? You can pick it up and put it away.
Not like with your elbow.
No, you can put it away. Yeah, you can pick it up. If you need the space. But if you forget your wallet on your table, you can't pick up the wallet. No, because the wallet is not. It's not muktzah masisir. It's not because you do a creative activity with it. That you have to push it off with the elbow, right, and then kick it into a corner somewhere. Okay.